Welcome to the late Middle Ages in the Drone Valley. Dronfield Church is at the heart of early settlement, surrounded by wooden buildings housing parishioners and laymen. The church is the only permanent stone structure and dominates a small village community of farmers, craftspeople and powerful landowners. Dronfield's landscape is agricultural, with managed woodland, livestock and fields worked in rotation. Good bidden, my name is Lady Alice Danecourt. I'm the daughter of John Neville and Maud Percy, two of the most powerful families in the land after the Plantagenets. My brother is grandfather to both Edward IV and Richard III, so that makes me great aunt to two kings. I was offered the lease of Dronfield Manor for £6 a year by my son-in-law Ralph Cromwell of Tattersall Castle. I already held the manor of Holmesfield, so I thought it would be a good idea to unite the two manors. I commissioned the plans for the building of a hall in the centre of Dronfield to enable the housing of my steward. The building was completed in 1430.
I'm Mike Slynn, Chairman of Dronfield Heritage Trust that owns the barn and surrounds. I'm also Chair of the Peel Centre Trust, which owns the community centre across the road. And it has to be said, the story of the barn really starts with the story of the Peel Centre. We had a group of trustees, John Ramsden, Tony Bethel, Michael Hobson, Bill Wynne, Dee Smiley, myself. And John Ramsden was walking up High Street one day and saw the old barn. So he came to our meeting and said, I wonder what's happening with the old barn. So we said, well, we'll have a look. It's owned by Sainsbury's. Then one of the trustees said, well, I know what's happening. It's been offered to the town council by Sainsbury's and they've declined. So we called the head of property at Sainsbury's, Chris Templeman, and I guess the conversation took about 25 seconds. These retailers don't have much time, and at the end of it, we'd given him the address of our solicitors, and we were going to receive as a gift this historic old building. So within weeks, it was a property then that belonged to the Peel Centre Charitable Trust. So we had a trustees meeting about money raising, and Michael Hobson, one of our trustees, said, well, look, just to get the ball rolling. So he got out his chequebook, he wrote out a cheque, put a cheque on the table, there was the first £10,000. So we then thought we'd better learn a bit more about heritage and heritage restoration, so contacted the Architectural Heritage Fund, who were incredibly helpful and said, well, you're probably in for $500,000 here with a building like this. You'll need to take the roof off, you've got massive dry rot, you've got probably death watch beetle, so you'll be lucky if you get away with $500,000. Then an organisation called English Heritage appeared, and the first thing we learnt was, since this was grade 2 star listed, then there'd be no chance of putting any more openings in the building. There'd be no chance of attaching any further structures to the building. There'd be no chance of putting any staircases outside the building. We worked for several years on and with English Heritage and got permission to make not just one, but 2 doorway openings in the ground floor of the barn, so we could get out into our kitchen, we could get out into the corridor and down to the loos. We then looked more seriously at how we were going to raise the money, and the popular heritage funder is, of course, the Heritage Lottery Fund. But before you can get access to that money, you have to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that you can spend it wisely, that you can not only refurbish a building, but that you can actually run a whole series of community or heritage events. They won't give you the entire sum of money to do the job up front. They give you approximately 5% of the total sum, and you have to get all the detailed plans together. But one of our other trustees was a retired architect, Ken Ward. Ken started sketching ideas for Dronfield Hall Barn and working with Mitchell Proctor, the architects from Chesterfield, and we set about raising yet more money and more money. 2015, the construction work began. By that time we'd raised not 50,000 as we thought we would need originally, but over £1 million, £1.1 million, so the construction work could start.
My name is Terry Delamore and I'm a joiner, and I worked on the roof at Dronfield Barn. To work on a building like this was fantastic because there's only once in a lifetime you'll get to work on a roof like this. We came along and the tilers had stripped all the old stone slides off, and then we looked at the timbers. But when we stripped all the old timbers out, we examined all the timbers we think we're going to leave in. We had to assess how much timber work we required. We shopped around, and the only place we could pick it up was France. In France they used to build all the old barns in oak, so we went along there and looked at them and selected certain timbers to come over here. We looked at the base truss, one of the main trusses, and the bottom timber had gone rotten at both ends. Then someone came up with an idea, I don't know who it was, to take a beam out from the first floor level and reuse that. So we took that out off the first floor and craned it up to the high level of the roof. We got the crane, and the crane took the weight of the truss while we chipped away and took the bottom main beam out and then slid the new one in place. It's like an L-shaped barn, and all the bottom of the L, all that section of roof was renewed. The purlins, the wall plates, and all the spars was all renewed in reclaimed oak. Usually the plasterboard goes on the underside, but on this case it went on top. So we had a problem with the weather, so we had to do sections at a time where we did got the plasterboard, and then we had the insulation on top of that. The lad who did the stone slates, he came back. The tiles that he took off that were in good condition he reused, and the ones that were shattered a little while he got reclaimed ones. Well, I've been in the joinery trade for 60 years, and this roof was a real challenge and a job in a lifetime. I was very pleased to work on it and proud.
My name's Brian Simpson. I'm a trustee of the Dronfield Heritage Trust and chair of the building project. My role was to liaise between the members of the trust and the professional team of building designers, and when we got onto site, with the construction team. The architects had developed a whole series of different proposals since the trust became the owners of the barn. The design that was finally adopted was that English Heritage, who had to be consulted on any works to do with this Grade 2-star building, preferred a proposal which had a very modern extension to contrast with the barn building. During the construction period, which lasted 12 months, there were several challenges which had to be faced. As construction work proceeded, it became apparent that the foundations were inadequate and we had to carry out underpinning works in a number of areas. The new first floor had to be supported by an independent structure. Main services of water, gas and electricity, and also BT lines, had to be installed into the building for the first time. Modern standards of power and data distribution services had to be incorporated in the existing building to meet the demands of the current and future generations of users.